You can alter customer perception on you are and your brand and your company. You can really make your company memorable.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Contractor Success Academy. Today I'm here with Ryan Shantz. Ryan, thanks for being with us.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know Ryan well, today you're in for a treat. Ryan is going to talk to us about proposals that sell. Now that's a huge part of running a business. How do you generating leads is one thing, but how do you close those leads? Proposals is a big part of the equation. Ryan is the founder of SumoQuote, and he also happens to be a guy with some experience. He's been in the field. So he was owner and manager at Epic Roofing. And so today we're going to be talking to a guy who's got experience. Ryan, I'm going to hand it over to you and let's jump into the presentation.
Sounds great. Well, yeah, Mark, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. This is going to be good. So yeah, as Mark said, I'm Ryan. I'm the owner of SumoQuote and founder of SumoQuote, and I'm also one of the owners of Epic Roofing Exteriors. So we're going to talk today a bit about designing proposals that sell. So I gave you a bit of this already, background. I'm doing some technology now with SumoQuote. I've got lots of experience on the construction sales side. The funny part of my background is before that, I was actually in denim manufacturing. I was the CEO of a company called Good Society. And so if you're struggling to put the three of these together, denim manufacturing, construction sales, and technology, I was too for a while. Obviously business is a common thread through there, but the more I kind of look back at my career and what I've done and what I've been a part of, the more I kind of look at these three things. And the big thing with denim manufacturing with Good Society there is I don't think there's an industry out there that's more brand sensitive than fashion. Fashion, it's all about the brand. And when we look at, construction sales and trying to differentiate yourself, that's one of the things then that you can start to do is really work on your brand and who you are. And we've taken all of that and we've actually wound a lot of that into a technology called SumoQuote. So it's pretty fun reflecting back and seeing how a lot of those past experiences are really tied together now in SumoQuote, some of the work we're doing there now.
Nice. And Ryan, maybe just for listeners, SumoQuote was born out of necessity, correct? You didn't just wake up one day and said, hey, let's start a software company, right?
SumoQuote was born out of necessity, 100%. So Epic Roofing, we were doing a ton of insurance sales. That was going really well for us, but we were nervous that if the insurance game dries up some, what are we doing? Are we out of business? Because we don't have retail sales, we don't have service sales, we haven't diversified enough of those areas. So SumoQuote we created because at the end of the day, if there were three quotes sitting in front of a homeowner and they had to make a decision, we wanted the homeowner to see ours as being different. And if it's just a logo, a few line items and a price, really, if all three quotes look that way, all you're giving the homeowner to differentiate you on is the price. And we don't want to be differentiating ourselves there, right? We want to show them the extra value that we've got. And so that's why we built SumoQuote. And we're going to talk today about the design and why it matters so much of those proposals and how you can use them to differentiate yourself.
Interesting.
So one of the guys on the technology side here is a guy named Guy Kawasaki. And man, this quote says it all for me. Sales fixes everything. And it really does. And I mean, granted, I come from the sales side more here, but production, you can figure that stuff out. If you use subcontractors, you can, fire bad ones, hire good ones, right? You can continue to grow your processes and get stronger, whether it's accounting or HR, whether it's lead generation, it's all of these things. But sales, you've got to be able to win and close sales. And if you've got sales, everything else can fall in line. And if you don't have sales, it doesn't matter how good everything else is, you're in big trouble. And so one of the things I like to say is the most inexpensive way to increase your sales is to win more leads that you already have. And so you've got leads coming in, which is great, or if you don't, you've got to make sure you're finding a way to get those leads. But once you've got those leads coming in, the most inexpensive way to get more revenue and to get more business is just to win more of those leads that are already coming in. It's the exact same amount of work, you're just trying to get more of it. So you're trying to, here again, it's about differentiating yourself. And so, it might be early, depends on the time of day there, but we'll go through some quick math here. As we go through some math, we look at, if you're a company right now and you've got 1,000 leads and you're winning 20% of those, say it's 200 jobs a year, right? So you're humming along, you're a respectable business, but you say, well, how can I increase this from 200 to 300 leads a year? And so there's two different ways, right? You can increase the number of leads, and by all means, you should never stop trying to work on that as well. So that's one option. You can go from 100 to 150 leads, and at 20% of the jobs that you're winning, you're going to get to 300 jobs. The other way of doing it, and you want to make sure you're focusing on both of these, but the other way is increase the percentage of jobs that you're winning. So if you got 1,000 leads, you want to get to 300 jobs. Well, if you can increase your win percentage and win 1 out of 10 more jobs, so you go to 30%, well, now you're at your 300 jobs. So we need to figure out, how do we find a way to win that additional 1 out of every 10 jobs that we bid on? And it doesn't matter if you're moving from 20% to 30% or 30% to 40%. It's a massive increase when you're taking steps like that. And yet when you carve it out to just that small thing of out of 10 jobs, how do I have enough impact, or how do I find a way to win just 1 out of 10 more jobs? That feels like it's bite-sized enough, and that it's something that we can do with that. But at the end of the day, there isn't a single magic bullet to this. We're going to talk about the one piece about more impressive proposals, but keep looking across the spectrum, because it's not going to happen overnight and only with one thing. So we'll talk about the one thing that I think can have a great effect on it, and one thing that's worked well for us. But certainly you want to make sure you're working on as many things as you can with that.
I think this is an awesome slide, Ryan. I mean, just the numbers, it really puts things into perspective. People have tendency to, hey, I need to increase my sales. We're not generating the volume that we should be at this point throughout the year. We need more leads. We need more leads. We need more leads. But there's huge gaping holes in the business. How do we fix this? From a cost standpoint, a lot more effective to go and tweak your closing by a couple points than to go and increase your leads by whatever it is, 50%, an extra 500 leads or whatnot. So this is huge. And obviously we're going to talk about proposals here, but I suspect that the cost, if you compare going to get an additional 500 leads versus, increasing your closing with proposals, probably a lot less. Am I right?
Far more efficient for sure. Yeah, no, far more efficient. So, and it's something that you can control, right? Leads, leads feel more difficult, and they can be a bit overwhelming for me, just because I know the sales side a lot better than I know the marketing side. Mm-hmm. But the marketing side, it's, man, how do you come up with that? It feels like more of an unknown for me, how to magically create 500 leads versus actually closing those leads. Well, I know how to do that, and I've built tools, I can create tools, I can share tools. It feels more tangible for me to figure out a way just to win more, because those things are already in front of me, and now I have far more control over that.
Right.
So I'll jump to the next slide here. This is a bit of a case study on Epic Roofing Exteriors, which is the company that I own. And the reason I use it is because it's just the company that's been using this style of presentation the longest. So our goal, as it says, was to diversify from doing insurance sales to really increasing the retail sales. And the retail sales, it's the most competitive. It's the place where presentation matters the most. And so that's why we've carved out this in our analysis. And so in 2016, when we launched the prototype for SumoQuote, we did approximately 3.1 million of retail sales that year, not the rest of our business. So that was just the retail sales of our residential division.
Sorry, Ryan, this is without using SumoQuotes, or this is with using SumoQuotes, or? That
was without using.
Okay.
And so then we introduced it, and in 2 years, we got our retail sales up 64% and a couple $1 million. And we were a mature business. We weren't a business starting out where you could expect more of that, hockey curve type increase. As a mature business, it's even more difficult. And as a company that gets a lot of our leads through digital marketing and some of these other things, they're a more cold lead than a referral to the neighbor next door. And so at this level, to be winning almost 50% of the leads that are coming into us is a really phenomenal win percentage. When it's, when it's purely referrals and it's friends and family and neighbors calling and stuff like that, you should be winning 60, 70, even 80%. When you're dealing with 5,000 to 6,000 leads a year, and a lot of them are coming in and they're getting multiple quotes, and you're the most expensive kid on the block or the more expensive kid on the block, to be at almost 50% is quite impressive at the end of the day. And the big thing I want to point out here, Mark, like when we talk about how do we increase our win percentage here, the question I'll often ask is, well, who is the most important person to increase your win percentage? I like to think in my mind as a former sales manager, that's the sales manager that makes all the difference. I think most contractors would say, well, it's the salesperson. That's the person you want to focus on getting better. But I'm going to suggest here, ultimately, the person that has the most impact on increasing that closing percentage is the customer. And so if we don't focus on the customer, and it's a really difficult shift to make because you're so used to thinking about yourself, your business, what you do, and you've got to really shift your mind to saying, everything that I think about should be from the customer's lens and how the customer views us and how the customer engages with us. And so that's the shift that we want to start taking place here. And that's where, when you think about, that's why proposals and how you present it and that sales experience makes such a difference to your numbers at the end of the day. So now that we're talking about customer experience, here's a line I like to use. Just because you're better than terrible doesn't make you good. And when I say that, what I mean is, when you think about other contractors that you're competing against out there and trying to create a sales experience for them, just because you're better than the other contractors who may be terrible, it doesn't actually mean that you're creating a good customer experience. And if I dive into that a little bit more, I think customer experience these days, people are really starting to measure you against not other contractors. They're starting to measure you against the customer experience they're getting from Amazon, or from their bank, or even from their grocery store. Mark, I've got 3 boys, and we shop at Superstore now pretty much exclusively. And the reason we do that is because we can order it online, we can drive up, somebody will bring it out to our vehicle, and we can drive away. And the whole thing takes 5 minutes, and it's seamless. But to take 3 boys that are 5 years old and under, screaming through the grocery store for an hour, like, they charge us $3 to do this. I'd pay 30 or 100. Like, it just doesn't matter, right?
Sign me up. Exactly. It's convenience and it's completely painless.
Totally. And so, but they've thought about the customer experience. They've thought about what the customer wants in that. And that's where, as contractors, we need to make sure that's our focus as we go through this. So I'll actually pause here quickly, Mark, and just show a quick sample of what I'm talking about here. And then we can dive into a bit more of the philosophy on this. But here's a sample quote that I just put together. And Epic Roofing, that's obviously the roofing company that I'm an owner of. But we start with putting the client's house on the cover because we want to emotionally connect with them. And by showing their house, it feels very custom built for them, this whole quote. From there, we often have an introduction page, and we'll template a lot of this so that it's just pulled from the system and included in with it. But we always personalize it, right? So we put the client's name on the front, and then we try and get into a sentence or a paragraph talking about the pain points, talking about the things that matter to them, the things that we know will connect with them in their purchasing decision.
Right.
So we'll go through.
In the sales process, you've uncovered why it is that they're even talking to you guys to begin with. What are the pains? What's the reason behind that? And you're sort of bringing this back to the surface here and saying, hey, we understand your pain and your problem.
Well, if you think about it this way, and there's so much AI out there, there's so much artificial intelligence that Google's investing in, and Facebook and everybody else. And you go on, you do a Google search, and then all of a sudden the next day there's all these ads on the side of your screen trying to market to you the types of things that you're searching for. And what Google's trying to do is they're trying to make an educated guess that you're in a buying mode in order to purchase something. But all of this AI, they're guessing, right? They're attempting to figure it out, hoping to trigger you to buy something. As a contractor, it's actually quite unbelievable that we don't have to guess. We actually get to talk to each one of our customers. And so we can custom build and specifically speak to what matters to them. But if we're, and so it's this absolutely phenomenal opportunity. We've got to be one of the only industries out there where we really don't have to guess at what what matters to the customer and what's going to affect them to actually buy with us, because we can ask them. Right. That's incredible. Everybody else is just hoping to be able to hit the right piece. And so the thing is, it's ironic that we have such an advantage and yet nobody takes advantage of it, right? We have such an advantage to create custom quotes and sales presentations that speak very specifically to what matters to the client. And yet 99% of contractors out there use the same generic quote for absolutely everybody and don't try and differentiate it to speak to the language of the homeowner whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So maybe a stupid question here, but why do you think that is? Is it time, lack of time? Is it is it knowledge? Is it resources? What is it exactly?
I don't think the tools have been out there. I think I've started to talk to some contractors that have tried to do it, whether it's taking photos and then they're showing the homeowner photos on their phone while they're standing on the ground, or they're attaching a couple of photos in an email. And I'll show you in this sample here as we go through. We'll actually show the homeowner, dissect, and give them education for, well, hey, as you're making a decision, here are the components of the roof. Let us give you good information so you understand this. And again, these are just options. I'm just, doing a quick sample here. But, in this sample, you've got a tool that makes it very, very easy to include photos, to educate the homeowner on their own house, to give them this stuff. And so I think a lot of the time, I've started to see some contractors starting to do it. But if it can be done better, and obviously that's where SumoQuote comes in. But for now, we're talking more about the theory of this stuff, but it's about giving them the right pieces here. Mm-hmm. And so then obviously we can go through and show them a quote and the work being done and give them a price, an authorization page here where we offer them upgrades. And man, homeowners will sign off on upgrades if you give them the chance. So just by listing them, you can oftentimes, increase your sales revenue on a job by 15, 20, 25%, and at much better margins than the price you're winning the job at.
Wow.
And here, because we're selling a roof, once they sign off on it, they're looking to pick colors. So we put this in there. And again, that's a part of the story. We're layering this all in the right order so it makes sense as they walk through all of it and terms and conditions. So that's just a quick sample of what this can look like in theory. But let's dive into a little bit more of this here. So when we go through this, why does design matter? Design matters because you gain customer trust. Customers know good companies and bad companies, and they make those educated guesses on them by the design oftentimes, right? You can alter customer perception on you are and your brand and your company. You can really make your company memorable by what you present and how you present it to them. And if you think about this, you think about companies you love, they create memorable experiences. And as we go down here, design sets you apart from, that's supposed to say crowd, typo there, apologies for that. And thoughtful design makes it easy to explain. But the brands that you like the most probably are the ones that make it the easiest on you. And so if we go to our next slide here, between these two, there's going to be one that you're likely going to trust more, that's going to make it easier for you to have a buying experience, that's going to stand out in your mind. People say if it's hard to understand, it's hard to buy. And so we want to make it easy to understand. Behavioral economics refers to this as mental fatigue. So if you're struggling to understand something, it makes it far, far more difficult for you to actually buy or pull your credit card out on it. So a quick story on this: one of my sales guys from the roofing side here a few months ago came in and said, "Oh, Ryan, you'll love this story. I was just sitting down with the homeowner. It's a $45,000 job, and we're sitting at the kitchen table. The competitor's quote is sitting right there on the table beside me. I'm looking at it, and it's like, okay, like they were leaning towards that customer, and this guy, my sales guy, was trying to win him over. And so at the end, the client said, "You know what? I'm gonna go with you. I mean, your quote is just so much more detailed. I know you'll do a good job." Now, the ironic thing, Mark, my sales guy is looking at the competitor's quote there, and it's actually far more detailed. But it gets into all sorts of industry jargon. It was obviously made in Word. It was just text. And the mental fatigue of trying to consume and understand that information, totally, they completely checked out. We won the job, and it was a significant sized job for us. But it was because of the simplicity. And you look at the page here, obviously eBay has focused far more on their interface here in their presentation than arngren.net, whoever they are. Right? And so that's the type of experience we're looking to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think sometimes we forget who we're speaking to. You know, you're not trying to sell a roof to another roofer. You may not be talking to an engineer on the other side of the table, right? So it's to understand who it is that's sitting there and make things relatable, easy to understand. So yeah, that's a great story.
Well, it's perfect. You pretty much just described my next slide here. So thank you. But
sorry about that.
No, that's great, right? It's about the customer. And so Donald Miller, he's got a book called Building a Story Brand, his company story brand. I'm going to walk through a little bit of that stuff. But the whole concept of a story, it's about the customer, that story. And so it's about making it so that you speak their language and you speak to what matters to them. And so when we talk about storytelling, you can have your brand and your company. And if you just spit out every time all of this stuff, and it's everything about your company, you just share everything that you think could matter with them, and your quote looks like this, well, really, this is the 10% that matters. And so if you force a client to wade through 90% of stuff that doesn't matter, you're going to have them check out. So you need to figure out what matters to them and listen and understand. There was a job last year where we'd put in a quote for a condo building, 237,000, full roof, partial siding, partial metals, good sized job, right? I called the property manager a week later, said, "Well, how do we look? How are we, getting ready for us to sign on this?" She said, "Well, my roofing contractor I always use, he's great, he's awesome, use him all the time. He's the best. He bid 207,000. But I really want you guys to win this job. So, take a look at your numbers and let me know if you can do anything before I present it. And either way, I'll push for you." Mm-hmm. And great, we have plenty of margin in there. I tweaked it a little bit, but I said to her, "Well, help me understand. You're raving about this other company. We've done one service job for you one time. Why are you so interested in working with us?" And I wish I had recorded it. She just said, "Oh man, I know this shouldn't matter. That quote you gave me was just awesome. Like, I had a question, I turned the page, there was the answer. I just know I set the two quotes in front of the condo board. They're going to be like, well, obviously we should use this company. It'll just make my life easier if I use you." And so that's the type of thing you want to do. Right.
Eliminate any kind of friction.
So when we get into, and this is Donald Miller's stuff from StoryBrand, right? But when you're talking about a story in this outline, and really think about having, I'll explain it here, but you've got a character, and the character has a problem. And then the character meets a guide who gives them a plan, calls them to action, and then that results in, whichever way the story goes here. But there's very standard, sorry, I'm blanking on the word here, very structured approaches to story, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why you've got a movie like Tommy Boy that's essentially the same movie as Star Wars, right? You've got a hero, whether it's Chris Farley or Luke Skywalker. And then they've never amounted to much. They always have so much more potential, but and then they've got this massive problem and they don't know what to do. And then they meet a guide, whether it's David Spade or Yoda, right? And then they give them a plan, calls them to action, they go through, but they're the hero of the story. And we've got to, again, we're reframing this as a contractor. The homeowner needs to be the hero of the story.
Right.
You are the guide. You are Yoda. You're not Luke Skywalker. But ultimately, the story is about Luke Skywalker going through. The story is about the homeowner, and you've got to craft your proposal to the things that matter to them. So the story is about them, but you are Yoda in that process, helping get them to success. And that's the frame that you want to come at this stuff from.
Yeah, it's like a mindset shift. I think people, using this analogy, people have tendency to try to make themselves out to be the hero, and it's all about, us this, and this is how we do it, and this is why we've always done it this way, and blah, 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 blah. And the customer's sitting there thinking, okay, well, that's great. And I've heard the same spiel from this guy and this guy and this guy. And at the end of the day, I'm still sitting here wondering what's in it for me. So you kind of turn things around here and make the customer the hero.
Yeah, exactly. So
right.
This next slide here, this is a bit of a freebie. And it's really free because all I did was steal it from StoryBrand.
Okay,
but this is something where people can pause the video. They can start thinking about the character, with the problem meets a guide and all of this. And when you start thinking about it, there's lots of different examples of this, right? It might be a homeowner, and the problem is they're struggling with finances. It might be a property manager, and the problem is they're just annoyed with everything because property managers have very hard jobs, and everybody just yells at them all the time. It might be an insurance adjuster trying to figure things out, or a homeowner unsure about how to navigate an insurance claim. So think about, for your business, who the character is, what the problem is, and then you start to craft according to that. So people can go through that. If I give you a bit of the synopsis here, you're going to lead them through it. You're the guide, so you lead them through it. But you have the ability to make the story about them. You recognize their problem and not the problem. You may know what the problem is in the bad flashing and why the roof is leaking. But their problem is that they're stressed out because it's an extra, $2,500 that they didn't have this month, right? Again, make it about them. Establish expertise, share value, gain trust from that, present a plan, call them to action. So it's a quick synopsis of things. If you want it to be really simple, though, be Yoda. You are the contractor. You are the guide. You can help lead them to success. You be Yoda. Don't make the story about you. That's the real big takeaway at the end of the day with this. So we've walked through a bunch of the philosophy on this. I'll show you guys a little bit more here, and I'll go through this fairly quickly. So here's another sample of a report, and I left the SumoQuote branding on this. This can obviously be branded with SumoQuote to any contractor's branding and coloring. But you go through, speak to the value points, what matters to them, the pain points. This I included because I'm selling a James Hardy job, and with James Hardy, it's all about the look. And when you've got a homeowner where the look of it matters, the look of the presentation and the quote is going to matter too. But we put this in here to get them excited about that. And again, you're creating that story. You're taking them through the process. And obviously, I reuse similar type photos and all of this. So, but I go through, I create my quote then and my authorization. And again, after the authorization, here's colors you can pick. Here's product options you've got. And so you can create different types of looks and different messaging. Here's a very unique one, though. So here's one where we were working on a condo, and it's the end of a job. The condo board had said, yeah, we know we need repairs. So we said, well, our pricing is $95 for a technician, $65 for a labor. Yes. Just go ahead. We've worked with you before. We know how the process works. Just go get it done. So that was great. So we go through that, and at the end of the job, we give them our report. So we say we did 29 window repairs, 200 feet of belly band, 18 dryer vents, 220 feet of downspouts, and we're going to charge you $22,000. And it's like, well, great. What did you actually do? And so in this case now, we give them, we're transparent, we're documenting things. So we give them the photos from the job saying, well, your downspouts were dumping a bunch of crud in your soffit. We opened it up, it looked like this. And then we split it, added a Y connector, and now everything's flowing properly. Your dryer vents were venting properly. It was dumping a ton of lint and crud in behind your siding. This obviously is a huge fire hazard, and condo boards never get to see this stuff. So the reason that they just said, yeah, we know it's going to be expensive, but we trust you guys, is because we do stuff like this to add value and show them exactly step by step what's going on. So we include them in the process, right? Again, we make this about them and add value for them. So we've obviously connected everything properly. The papering was done incorrectly, resulting in a bunch of rot on the wood. So we've rebuilt them, and now your windows look like this again. Here's our warranty certificate, something easy for them to hold on to. And here's why we're awesome and you should use us for all sorts of stuff in the future. So these are the types of ways that you try and add value and really speak the language of the customer and what matters to them.
Very nice.
I'll do one last thing here, Mark. I'm going to do, so SumoQuote, this is a quick demo of what we've been building these reports in. So with SumoQuote, this would be, you'd see all the recent quotes you've been working on. You create a new project here, punch in a project number, and I'm going to hit this, but it'll fill in, basically do customer name, phone number, email, address. So your generic CRM type information that you can track all this stuff on. So I'll create a project here, and now I'm going to go here and create a report. And we actually make it quite easy for everyone, because here we've got all of our pages set up: title page, introduction, inspection, quote details. So as I've said before, we always include an image of the client's house on the cover. And of course, I'm nowhere near in my files where I should be for loading a cover image.
And so Ryan, how long, obviously this looks like you can structure it. There may be a bit more time required to set it up initially, but once the setup's done, it looks like this can shorten the amount of time that would typically need to go into building such a tailored proposal.
Very, very much. You save templates in here. And so that's where if I go on the introduction page, I can write whatever I want to in here, or I've got a saved list and I just use my retail text. And by changing the name, I've got this page done.
Okay.
Inspection photos are easy to drag and drop in, or if I don't have any, I just toggle the page off. You know, here, again, I fill in the quantities of what I'm selling and I'm done with that, right? So I can go view the list here and use one where I've already got numbers filled in. Authorization page, same thing. I can delete line items on here. I can add line items. I can drag and drop these around. So very easy to custom build something for a client. And again, if I view the list here, in my sample, I've got one with quantities filled in. I flip on the terms and conditions page. Now the custom page, Mark, here's where we get into a lot of custom marketing messaging. So if I click on that, I've saved, I know the types of things that matter to most people out there. So whether it's financing, whether it's talking about a referral program, whether it's showing a breakout down of a roof, or why a certain type of shingle is good, or shingle colors. So I've built custom marketing messages. And so if I say, well, financing really matters to this homeowner, I just select this one. And then I click and drag and drop, and I layer it up here in my presentation where I want to have that conversation with them. And then I might add another custom page and, you know, add the shingle colors and put that after the authorization page. So you can see by just, you know, adding the cover photo, adding the quantities on here, you can actually make some very custom, very professional looking quotes in a few minutes here when you've got your templates built. And so it doesn't have to be difficult to do these things, but you want it to be very thoughtful. And once you build your templates, it can certainly save you actually a ton of time at the end of the day as well, from what most contractors' typical quoting process is.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And how would you, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but you know, I see a beautiful proposal like this. Is this the type of thing where you would send it to the customer, or would you advise people to take the time to present it in person and actually go through it together with them? What's kind of the best practice there? How do you advise people to use this?
I always tell my sales team here, if you ever have a chance to establish a relationship, do it. If you're sitting with the customer, the odds of winning that job go up exponentially. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of the time, if you're just emailing it to them, they may have questions on it, and basically the first person to follow up with them and answer the question, so they no longer have something blocking them from signing, is the person that ends up winning that job then. So certainly with SumoQuote here, with this button, you can download it as a PDF, print it out in color if you get a chance to, because it looks that much more impressive, and you can show it to them. If you're making revisions to it and then following up with them, you can send it for e-signing, and they can do e-signing, creating a digital experience and more customers, it's hard to get at the kitchen table with them. They don't want that. Right. And so, yeah, SumoQuote has an e-signing option here. And this is something that I'm happy to, if any of your contractors there want to reach out to me, my contact details are here. And I'm happy to go through and even help work with you to set up some of your templates so that this can be fast and easy for you to get going with this stuff as well.
Yeah, I think that's important, Ryan, because that might be a daunting task. It's not every contracting business that has the resources in-house to really personalize these things or make them look great. And so that can be pretty compelling, I think, for most people. You see something look so beautiful, you scratch your head, well, who's going to do that for me? Who's going to help me set that up? So nice to hear that you guys can kind of support that and even see the software firsthand, how it looks. I think it looks great. There's no reason why companies shouldn't be using technology like that today. Just like you said, eliminates friction, keeps things a lot more personalized, gives you more visibility into what's happening. I think you guys have some type of tracking kind of built in there to know whether or not people have looked at the proposals, right? Something like that.
We've got a sales dashboard on there, so you can be tracking your win-loss percentages and all that stuff. We've got a callback calendar on there, so it'll give you reminders to follow up with people. Because again, if they've just got a question, you want to make sure that you're following up. It just demonstrates that you're engaged, that you care about them, that you care about their project, that you're thinking about it. So we've got a lot of extra sales tools built into this as well.
Awesome. So Ryan, takeaways aside from leveraging technology, which people, we're almost in the year 2020 here. This is something that people should be using. Aside from technology, key takeaways for today are what exactly?
You know what, the big one, we've got such a phenomenal opportunity as contractors to customize what we're building and presenting to homeowners to make it so we're speaking their language and something that matters to them. And it's just unbelievable that 99% of contractors out there don't do it. So there's a very, very unique opportunity to differentiate yourself by being the contractor that makes the presentation and speaks the language of what really matters to the homeowner at the end of the day. So learn about them, understand them, and craft your customer experience to them would be the big one.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for the presentation. This has been enlightening. I'm sure that if there are people listening and they're not currently, leveraging proposals the way you've shown us to kind of do so today, people are definitely going to be getting on board. So thanks again for your time. Appreciate the lesson, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Mark. Great to connect with you again. Thanks for having me.
All right. Enjoy.